Hey y'all, it's X, and welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to give you guys a list of my top 10 breakout players for you guys to watch for the 2024 season. This could include both fantasy and if you're just a regular fan of teams and want to know who your favorite players might want to be for next season if you want to see them before they're superstars, right? So, before we start off, we're going to list off some honorable mentions. Number one is Bijan Robinson. The reason I didn't include him on this list is because I think I don't know. I feel like everybody kind of knew Bijan was good last year. Like, he already was really good, but the problem was he just wasn't used enough. So I wouldn't really call it a breakout if we already kind of know what he is. He already is one of the top running backs in football. It's just, he just had a terrible coach. That's really what his only problem was. Number two is Deonte Banks. I don't know if he's going to have a breakout this year. I might want to give it one more year. DBs usually take a little bit longer to adjust than most other positions, but he's definitely somebody to watch. He had a solid second half to his rookie year, and I just think that the Giants' defense is going to be good in general, but with how young that DB room is, Deonte Banks is going to be the number one corner. Cordell Flott's going to be the number two, so it's going to be really, really interesting to see. They're either going to get burned and it's going to look really bad, or both of them will step up to the plate, or just one of them. I don't know. Number three is Sam Darnold. This is a kind of like, this really depends on if he's going to end up starting the entire year or not. I put him on this as an honorable mention because he has a chance to break out, kind of in a similar way to Baker Mayfield, who's also from his draft class. But on the Vikings, he has an opportunity to play with the best receiver in the NFL, one of the better complementary receivers in the NFL, although he has some off-the-field issues going on, in Jordan Addison. One of the better tight ends in the NFL in TJ Hawkinson, a very solid offensive line. Aaron Jones just came there. He's a good running back, so he's a really good supporting cast around him. And it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do this year. And number four is Zamir White from the Raiders. He's going to have a chance to start this year with the departure of Josh Jacobs to the Packers. And it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do with those touches. Again, honorable mention because I don't know how amazing he's going to be year one. He could be really good. He could just kind of be average and just be like a better backup running back than a starter. So we'll see. But now let's jump into the actual list. All right, so starting with number 10 on the list, we're going to have Zion McCollum from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're going to see something really interesting that I'm only going to put on the screen for him, which is his RAS score, which is basically like an athleticism score. And the only reason I wanted to show this is because he has probably the highest relative athletic score of all time with a perfect 10.0. That's like the best grade that you can get. He ran a 4.33 combine. He's just an insanely agile athlete. He moves really well in space. And after the departure of Carlton Davis, because they traded him to the Lions, Zion McCollum has a legitimate chance to actually start this year, and it seems like right now he is the CB2 on the depth chart, and pairing up with somebody like Jamel Dean will give him the chance to not be the number one corner, a boundary corner. He will be a boundary corner, but give him the chance to be like a number two corner and just kind of be a complimentary guy at first and just really develop into being an elite player like we think he can be because of how good of an athlete he is. You can see his stats from last year. He didn't really play too much. 49 tackles, 2 forced fumbles was actually pretty solid. No picks, but 9 pass deflections isn't bad. But I really think he has super, super high potential just because of the type of athlete that he is. He has really, really good size as well. So I really look forward to seeing what this season holds for Zion McCollum, who's probably going to be the only name that you guys don't know on this list. Our Giants. And I know what a lot of people are going to say. Brian Burns is already an elite edge rusher. How could he break out? And to be honest, he really isn't elite. And there's a lot of what I said was that I didn't hate the Brian Burns contract, not because he's already lived up to it, but because he has the potential to live up to it. And that's what the Giants are paying on. That's why the Panthers sold so low on him, because they probably realized that they're not going to get that out of him. So you can see his 2023 stats. Every non-defensive position will have projected stats for 2024 based off of what ESPN says, but according to Pro Football Reference, this is what he had in 2023. 2 QB hurries, 11 knockdowns, 21 pressures, which actually was top 10 in the league. I think he was 11th in the league, and then 8 sacks, which is just not amazing. But I think when it comes to why I think he could have a breakout season, actually be the elite edge rusher that people want him to be, or some people think he already is because he now probably has the best edge rusher on the opposite side of him that he's had in his entire career. Kayvon Thibodeau is definitely a sacks guy. Like, he kind of looks a lot better than he is because of sacks, but I think that they're going to elevate each other. And I think he's going to have the best interior player that he's ever played with. I would definitely say that Dexter Lawrence is better than Derrick Brown. Derrick Brown is very talented as well, but Dexter Lawrence is on a whole different level. So, and then you still have Azeez Ojulari to come in and rotate. So I think there's going to be a lot of guys to take pressure off of Brian Burns, and a lot of teams are probably going to run into the problem where it's just like, we have to try and double-team Dexter Lawrence. You have to try and double-team Brian Burns. And that might set somebody like Kayvon Thibodeau free. That might set somebody else like Brian Burns free. So I could have put Thibodeau on this list. You can really swap either one of them in or out. I think they're both going to benefit from each other being on the field, but I think Brian Burns has the chance to take the bigger leap. Now, number 8, I have Garrett Wilson. There's a reason that these guys are kind of lower on the list. Some of them are already good players. Now, Garrett Wilson is somebody that we've known for a while is a really good player, but he just hasn't had a good quarterback. And there are definitely times where it feels like Garrett Wilson is just like, we're just waiting, man. And I think with Aaron Rodgers coming back this year, this could be the year that he actually breaks out. So in 2023, he had 95 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which is solid stats when you have no receiver or no quarterback. But with somebody like Aaron Rodgers coming back, I think 2024, those projected stats could even be an understatement, to be honest. 80 catches, I think he could go over 90 again. I really think that he could just be Aaron Rodgers' next Devontae Adams. I really think he could go upwards of 1,300 yards if Aaron Rodgers plays good enough. And I think he could be in the double-digit touchdowns. I think 9 is a pretty good projection, though. Yeah, Garrett Wilson is very talented. We've known that for a very long time. It's just a matter of, can he get a quarterback that will be able to empower him? Number 7, we're going to have Dalton Kincaid, the tight end from the Buffalo Bills. Now, the reason that he's on this list is the Bills lost all of their weapons last season. Dalton Kincaid was probably like the 3rd option on that team, and now he's probably moving into a number 1 role, depending on how you see Keon Coleman as a rookie. So last year he had 73 catches, 673 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And in 2024, we're projecting him to have 75 catches, 728 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Again, I think this could go higher. He's probably going to be Josh Allen's number 1 target since he's already had a year to play with him, unlike Keon Coleman, who is now adjusting to the NFL, and we've never seen him play a snap in the NFL yet. And Khalil Shakir, I wouldn't really worry about him. But Dalton Kincaid, really talented receiving tight end, and I have a lot of trust in him. I'll give you a secret. He is somebody that I'm 110% looking to draft in fantasy. I think he could have a Sam Laporta type season where he just kind of goes off. I think he's going to be a big red zone threat for this team. Again, I'm not really worried about like Dawson Knox taking his snaps. It seems like Knox is kind of out of the picture for this team, and Kincaid is really taking over that receiving role. Number 6, this is going to be a really popular one that a lot of different people are saying, and the projected stats for next year don't give this enough shine to what Jackson Smith-Njigba could be. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a really talented receiver. He came out of Ohio State last year, and the problem with him going to the Seahawks, which is a good fit, but the problem with him going to the Seahawks was that he was automatically the 3rd or 4th option when he has the talent to be a number 2. Probably even like a Cooper Kupp type player, like a slot number 1 type of option. But when you have DK Metcalf on that team, and you have Tyler Lockett, who still isn't really falling off in terms of his play, it was really hard for Jackson Smith-Njigba to get snaps and targets. But he really actually did last year. 63 catches, 600 yards, and 4 touchdowns is definitely not bad. I think he also battled with injuries for maybe a game or 2. I could be wrong about that. I feel like he might have missed a game or 2. Maybe I'm wrong. But next year, I think these projected stats are just a little bit low. I think Tyler Lockett's probably going to be a little bit more out of the picture, especially with him aging. I could see the Seahawks definitely prioritizing getting the young guys on the field, especially with a new head coach. Geno's getting older, which is why they probably picked up Sam Howell. So they could be looking to move into a newer, younger era of the Seahawks team with Pete Carroll gone, things like that. So 72 catches, 842 yards, and 4 touchdowns is what they project him at. I could see him sneaking into 1,000 yards and just getting more targets than Tyler Lockett. I think I like where the receptions are at, around 70-ish. I would probably take the 70 to 80 range. And I think the touchdowns, I think if he's going to be in the slot, like he probably should be, I would probably get 6 or 7 touchdowns. That would be my personal projections. Again, this is just what ESPN projects, but I think that he could have a lot better of a year than what they're showing. Coming in at number 5, we're going to have Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. Now, Why is Bryce Young so low on this list? And also, this is the first quarterback who actually made the list, so congratulations, Bryce Young. I do have one quarterback higher than him, though. So the reason Bryce Young is so low is because I don't think this Panthers team really improved a lot. They definitely spent money on the offensive line, picking up Robert Hunt in free agency. That was a great pickup. I know it was a lot of money, but to get somebody of his talent to come to a team like the Panthers, you were going to have to overpay, and everyone knew that. You also picked up Deontay Johnson, one of the better slot options in the NFL, so your receiving core actually looks really solid next year with him, Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall if you still think he has potential. So Bryce Young is going to have weapons. You also drafted Jonathan Brooks, so he can pair well with Chuba Hubbard, and we're going to see how that performs next year. So Bryce Young doesn't have nobody to throw to now. And last year, again, he was a rookie, so you can kind of disregard the stats. I definitely take it more as a bigger sign if a rookie quarterback thrives immediately, like CJ Stroud, rather than struggles early, because that's pretty normal. It's very abnormal for a quarterback like CJ Stroud to just have success immediately, which is why I think he's going to be amazing. But Bryce Young, I think he could definitely take a step up next year. And again, I think this is a case where the projected stats, according to ESPN, don't really give that enough justice. Bryce Young definitely missed some games last year. So, again, those 2023 stats are not fully what he did. They weren't good anyways, so it didn't really matter. But for 2024, we're projecting him at 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 picks. Again, I don't think he's going to take a leap into being a top 10 quarterback by any means, but I think next season he definitely has a chip on his shoulder with how fast teams are kind of getting rid of quarterbacks now. And I think he definitely has a reason that he kind of needs to perform in a way. So I also think that the weapons, like I said, the offensive line got better, weapons got better. Defense definitely took a hit, so that could maybe be an issue with the offense. They might just have a lot of pressure on them, but I don't know if Bryce Young is going to be the reason that they're losing games anymore. Number 4, we're going to have Kyle Pitts from the Atlanta Falcons. Now, why did I put him on here and not Bijan Robinson? Now, Kyle Pitts in his rookie year showed that he was a really good tight end. And I think he has the same problem as Bijan Robinson. I just didn't want to put them both on this list, to be honest. And I think Kyle Pitts is a more interesting case because I actually think Kyle Pitts could just be the best tight end in the NFL if used correctly. And it really doesn't make any sense to me as to why why Arthur Smith did not just decide to use him like George Kittle. Kyle Pitts is an insane athlete. He has insane hands. He's great size, and he's an amazing blocker. That is literally just George Kittle, but probably even better, honestly. I think he has more athleticism than Kittle. So I think that Kyle Pitts could be amazing in this new system with who is their coach? I see him in my head. Oh my gosh. Anyways, I think with a new coach, new offense, I think that they're going to be a lot better because Arthur Smith just sabotaged Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson last season. So in 2023, Kyle Pitts had 53 catches, 667 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And the biggest thing I want to highlight is a 12.6 average. I think that definitely needs to go up. I think Kyle Pitts needs to be somebody who you are just sending down the field to either distract safeties, pull the defense down the field, and maybe take underneath routes. He is somebody who, even if you are not going to use him in a way that you're just throwing the ball to him, bombing it downfield every play, use him as a distraction. Use him to open up the rest of the offense because there's going to get to a point where if defenses don't pay attention to him, he's going to go for 150 yards a game because he can just run past your safeties. He's that athletic that defenses will have to pay attention to him, and it's just a shame that they haven't used him in that way yet. Now, for 2024, he's again projected at 60 receptions, 831 yards, 4 touchdowns, but that average really went up by about 2 yards almost. No, really about 1.5 yards. I think it could go even higher. Like I said, I think we could be looking at 15 yards per catch. I mean, you give him the ball underneath on short routes, but I really think what he's going to excel at is being put on deep posts, put on go routes, being put on things that make the defense say, hey, we need to watch this guy because he's going to run past those. And it will open up so much for this offense, especially things like Bijan Robinson underneath who can make people miss with the ball in his hands. This offense could be electric, and I don't know what is stopping them. Number 3, this is probably a name that some people will know, maybe not everybody, but it's Gregory Rousseau from the Buffalo Bills. Now, Greg Rousseau, if you have watched me for a while, you would know he's probably one of my favorite edge rushers in the league, and I am waiting for him to break out. If this is the true edge rusher breakout that I'm waiting for. In 2023, he had 7 quarterback hurries, 12 knockdowns, 5 sacks, and 25 pressures. Last season, he had 8 sacks and around 20-something, I think 21 pressures or 18 pressures. So, Rousseau is somebody who has he was a really interesting prospect coming out of Miami, where he was a super athlete, and you were kind of questioning, is he developed enough to actually play edge? Is he going to need a couple of years to kind of come into his own and actually learn how to be a true pass rusher? Is he going to develop a pass rush plan and have a variety of moves that he can use to get past an offensive lineman? And the answer is yes. I mean, he's done very well with that so far. I couldn't find what his double team percentage is. I'd assume it's really low because he plays on the opposite side of Von freaking Miller. But his pass rush win rate isn't bad, but we really want to see that go up from 15.5%. It's definitely kind of lower, but it's like average. It's probably like an average win rate. If you're elite, you really want to see it in that like 20 elite. If you want to be top 10, like 21% plus. So basically above Brian Burns. Like the elite guys, like I think Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons. I think Micah Parsons had like a 35% pass rush win rate, which is insane, by the way. That's like an outlier. I think Bosa was at like 33. But if Rousseau can get, I want to watch him for this year because I think with Von Miller I don't know if he's going to take a step back, but he has his own issues with contracts and things like that. I think he had some off the field stuff too last year. There's always questions about Von Miller. Greg Rousseau's been in the league for 3 years now. Is he going to step up? Is he going to show that he can be a true number one? I mean, this is the time. If he wants to get paid, this is the time for him to show it. So I really do want to see if Rousseau can make his name known across the NFL, because he could be somebody who is insanely hard to block, and he just needs to put it all together. And I think he could have a great year. At number 2, I know Prods, my favorite Steelers fan, he is going to have a field day with this one. I have George Pickens at number 2. It's kind of funny because the projected stats actually have him having a worse season than he did last year. It's actually really funny. I don't agree with it. But the biggest reason for George Pickens being on my breakout watch list is a new quarterback. Oh my God, I cannot tell you how terrible Kenny Pickett was. He might have been one of the worst quarterbacks I ever had to watch. And he kind of was just allowed to start for I don't even know how long. I hated watching Kenny Pickett. He's not a true game manager. He was like Mac Jones, but less glorified because he didn't play for the Patriots. Right? Last season, George Pickens had 63 catches, 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns, and averaged 18 yards a catch, which is insane, by the way. In 2024, he's projected to have 71 catches, so that's going up, but only 1,090 yards, 15 yards per average, or 15 yards per catch, sorry, and then 5 touchdowns again. I think this could go up. I think the biggest reason is quarterback play. You are either going to have Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. Hopefully Justin Fields is not being put on kick returns, because I might cut off any Steeler game that comes on. That's going to be atrocious. But Russell Wilson is a guy who's probably going to fit George Pickens a lot, because Russell Wilson's problem is that he's always looking for the deep play. And what is George Pickens great at? The deep play. So there's just going to be a lot of times where Russell Wilson's going to be like, F it, George Pickens is down there somewhere, and just lob that thing to him. And again, with the departure of Deontay Johnson, somebody's going to have to take those snaps. And I don't think George Pickens is going to be a slot receiver, obviously. He's obviously a boundary guy, but somebody needs to get those catches, and I don't know, who did they drafted? I believe they drafted Roman Wilson. I could be wrong, but he's probably going to take that slot role. But I don't think he's going to get that type of Deontay Johnson level projection or production immediately. So I think a lot of that's going to go to George Pickens. And I think he's going to have an insane season. I think he could, if Russell Wilson is your quarterback, or if Justin Fields learns how to throw the ball, I think George Pickens could go upwards of 1,200 yards, maybe even touching double-digit touchdowns if he's a really good red zone threat, like I think he can be. So George Pickens is definitely somebody that I would watch if you are looking into fantasy, if you're looking into just being a fan of a player before they're a legitimate superstar. George Pickens might be your guy. But there's one more person who I think everybody needs to be looking at for this year and the next 15 years. And my number one is Anthony Richardson. Now, if you watch my favorite players video, you are not surprised by this whatsoever. Everyone knows I love Anthony Richardson. And again, I think this is another situation where I think the projected stats do not do him justice. In 2023, he only played 4 games. And not even. He played 2.5 games because he left early in Game 3 and also early in Game 4, I believe. So, Anthony Richardson is an anomaly at quarterback, to be honest, right? I had him in fantasy as a rookie. I drafted him because I'm like, this dude's going to be insane. And I got 4 great games out of him. I was really close to actually trading him too because, again, he was my backup. I had Lamar Jackson. So I was really close to trading him too and getting a starting running back, which probably would have won with the Super Bowl, but I digress. In 2023, in that 2.5 game sample size, almost 600 yards, 3 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. Now let's just start with the passing because I think that's the part that people have a lot more questions about, obviously, than the rushing side. Anthony Richardson looked like a legitimately great passer. In the preseason, he had really, really solid games. As a starter in the end, in the regular season, did he win 2 of his starts? I could be wrong. I think he won the 2 games that he was maybe he lost 1. I forgot, but he put up really good stats in those games. I mean, again, only 1 interception when people were projecting him to be a really, really high interception player. I know it was only 2.5 games, but the 1 pick to 7 total touchdowns. I mean, I really, really like Anthony Richardson, and I think people are going to have to understand that he is insane. 500 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's really solid for basically 2 games. That's what you kind of have to call it. And for the rushing stats, he put up 4 touchdowns on the ground, 136 yards. I mean, he's a true dual threat. I love him so much more than Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is a system quarterback, but that's another video that I might make if I want to anger some people. We'll see. But for 2024, he is projected at 3,300 yards, 16 touchdowns, which I think is criminally low. I think upwards of 24. I would project him to have a very Lamar Jackson-esque season with maybe less rushing yards, but probably more rushing touchdowns. I would probably, if I had to choose my projected stats, which I really should have done for this video instead, I would probably put it at around the 3,300 yards, but probably 22 to 27 touchdowns. I think 27 on the high end, 22 on the low end. Actually, no, I think the low end would be 16, but I think where I'm projecting him is probably 22 to 24. 12 picks I think is around the same. I would probably go 9 to 10. I don't think it's going to be super high, to be honest. I think he's a really good decision maker, and I think that just wasn't really shown at Florida because they don't really run a pro-style offense. And then the rushing I could care less about. I think it's probably going to be a little bit higher in yards, maybe 600 to 700 yards, and I think he could hit double-digit touchdowns if Shane Steichen, because, I mean, again, his coach is Shane Steichen. This is the guy that developed Jalen Hurts. So I think he is going to use him in the same way that he used Jalen Hurts. And again, I think Anthony Richardson could just be better than him. I think he's better athletically, stronger arm, better passer, honestly. I don't really love Jalen Hurts as a passer that much. But that is my number 1 player. And I think everybody needs to be looking out for Anthony Richardson before he's a superstar, because I will be calling out everyone who was on the bandwagon after me. But thank you guys so much for watching. That is my top 10 list. Let me know if you guys want to see more of these. I definitely could crank out a lot more of these. This graphic did not take me an insane amount of time to make. Definitely took me a day. But, yeah, I really appreciate it. So let me know if you guys are messing with the content. And remember to leave a like and sub. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.